Hello, I'm Aidan Moran and welcome to Brave Talks. And we're very lucky to be joined by Chris Hartley today, and thank you for sparing the time. So I think the most important thing is, who is Chris?
Yeah, so you told me you were going to ask me that question, and it sent me down a little existential rabbit hole of, I don't know. At times, I could have told you who I was by just describing what I was doing. So I would say, I'm an engineer, I'm a behaviour specialist, I'm an American football player, whatever the thing at the time was that was how I was defining myself. And that was just a thing I was doing. And I think, and this will probably come up again as well, but almost just a mask I was wearing at the time. And I know now that I probably, am I a culmination of all of those things and all those experiences? But I'm also leaning a little bit more towards I'm just a, group of trauma responses and coping strategies in a trench coat pretending to be a person. But I think I know who I want to be. I want to be Sam Vimes when I grow up. That would be the thing. And I think a lot of that is to do with the values and the behaviours. And I want to be someone who, does fight the right fights, isn't scared to do that, genuinely cares about everyone. I think I have some way to go to get there, and that's fine. But then there's also the other identities. I'm not my gender. I'm not my sexuality. I'm not my relationship status. But all of those kind of all bring in to it. But then thinking that more, all of that has been impacted by my ADHD and growing up in a world that's not built for me. So yeah, I have no idea is a really good thing, and it's constantly changing. And I think one thing I would say is I'm at a point in my life where I'm the most me I've been, and I think it's a wonderful combination of the fact that I get to be me, whatever that is, at work far more than in any other job I've had, which is great. I don't need to put energy into pretending to be something, and also the culmination of kind of lockdown and TikTok, which so lockdown did two really big things. One was it created a nightmare situation for someone with ADHD because of the lack of structure, the lack of things to do, the being confined, and that absolutely caused my symptoms to get worse and some of my behaviours to get worse. But it also created more of a safe space because it was just here. So it then became far easier to lean into who I was. There was even less reason to mask, to pretend, which then made it safer to express myself and be okay with that and be more comfortable about actually not hiding parts of me. And then it was only over lockdown I finally downloaded TikTok because partner at the time kept sending things, and I was like, oh, fine, I'll look at it. And the algorithm on that is phenomenal for pushing you towards your people and seeing lots of other people sharing their lived experiences and explaining things like people without ADHD typically don't spend their time worrying if they've got ADHD. People who are straight typically don't spend their time worrying about if they're not. And those kind of and going, oh, that's not normal. Normal's a loaded word, but yeah. So getting all that validation on top of the rise in the symptoms because of the situation, but also the space kind of allowed me to become more comfortable just being me, whatever that is.
No, I think that's a fantastic answer, and I feel we could almost have a whole talk just on that question alone. During lockdown, you mentioned about like watching all these TikTok videos and to your people. How much and how important was that to you to help you?
I think it was huge. I already, like, generally socially had a wonderful lefty, queer, neurodiverse bubble of friends that I spent most of my time with. But just, I don't know how much of it is just seeing more and how much of it was, but it's the people on the phone in the screen saying it, because it's very easy to just be like, well, yeah, but I hang around with the people that are like me, which is why we have the commonality. But seeing actually a huge, like, diverse range of people and different experiences, but still talking about the commonality around sort of, you know, ADHD and gender and things, it was hugely important and really helped make it okay. Like, I didn't know that it wasn't okay until kind of, I don't think was given permission, but almost it's like, yeah, no, this is fine. So yeah, that really helped. I think it was a big thing.
So I know you've got an awful lot of things that you're interested in doing, and you've got a lot of hobbies and a lot of very talented individual. How much do you think that's influenced by the ADHD?
Hugely influenced by. So one of the things about being late diagnosed and sort of really coming to terms and accepting is then being able to look back on my life and like replay it all through the filter of ADHD. It's hugely enlightening, traumatizing, scary, all the things. But yeah, I've been able to be successful in a huge number of settings, pick up skills very easily, as long as they fall into the skills I want and the thing I want to do. It's because I can, when there's something that I really want to engage with, I can put so much focus into it. Add to the fact that the intuitiveness of ADHD, like the ability to pick up things quickly, just makes certain things so much easier, I believe. I remember when first being shown American football playbooks. They're very complex. They can be very simply very complex. I could literally just look at a thing I'd never seen before, the first introduction to even concept, and just know what it all meant and what these couple of little lines meant for all 11 players on the field. And I didn't understand why other people didn't. And it things like, yeah, I took up leathercraft because I was off work for a bit with having an operation on my knee. And like the first couple of things I made, people were like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, I just copied the video. Like, the person said, do the thing. I did the thing and I made the thing. Like, why is this hard? And I get that with a lot. And I think another part of the journey is accepting that is a thing that not everyone has, and that enjoying that. Don't just, not just worrying about the negatives that come with ADHD, and sort of really leaning in. And I think it also, why I've been successful here is very much because I can be the full ADHD Chris at work, and I've got a role that allows a lot of those skills to come out, which is great, and supportive people around me, so that when the worst bits of it hit, it's dealt with in a sort of a caring way, which is obviously very appreciated. But also there's like a culmination of like lots of the things I did. So the sports coaching, the behaviour stuff, working with charities, and also the various tech roles I had, kind of nicely sort of culminated into bringing the skills here. But yeah, being able to sort of lean in at work to the bits that give me the reward, that fire the dopamine. There's a lot of them in this role, and that's that's great. So yeah, it's the understanding that, and then probably the element that I'm working on at the moment, I'm trying to take on, is not carrying the shame of when the negatives stop me being a success, because it's not that I'm lazy if a thing doesn't happen. It's not that I didn't care. It's I have a disability that means it's much harder, and sometimes that will literally mean I can't. You know, yes, I still have to meet my commitments because that's the deal. But if the fact that a thing is late, or the fact that maybe I have to stay up for a couple of hours to get a thing done to meet, it's not because I'm a bad person. It's not because I failed. It's just the reality of living it, and you've got to take the good bits with the bad bits. But one of the other good bits is actually I've learned that I can usually get stuff done to a far higher standard than people need in way less time than anyone else needs, which is great, because when you have all the issues, you know, you learn those skills. But also knowing that means it's then very easy to be like, well, I can knock it out in half an hour. So it's a constant battle with those things. But yeah.
I think that's really fascinating. And you focused on the positives there, which I thought was really, really interesting. And then kind of touched on the negatives. I think people generally focus on the negatives. When you mention ADHD, they think of fidgeting or lack of focus, or, you know, these sort of things, shifting from thing to thing. How do you deal with that? Because I think it is misunderstood, the positives and the negatives.
I mean, I reached a point maybe about a decade ago, well, when I started sort of truly sort of appreciating the sort of the philosophy, the mindset is the group of people on the planet that I genuinely care about their opinion of me is really, really small, right? Like, it wouldn't take me long to name everyone, right? And actually, the fact that people not in that group either have a misconception about what ADHD means, or a belief that it's not real, or that I'm using it, I don't care. And I think that's how I deal with it. There are lots of things I do care about. There are lots of things completely out of my control that, you know, have impacted my mental health or caused me stuff. But the opinion of people that are outside that group is not one of those things that that matters. And I think that's probably the only way I can, because if I did care, I'd be fighting that fight every day on every channel I had, because that's how I deal with the stuff that I care about. But yeah, there is a lot of misunderstanding about ADHD. I mean, the label itself is wrong. So it's the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I do not have a deficit of attention. People with ADHD don't have a deficit of attention. They have amazing attention. They just have attention to everything, or just the one thing, and don't necessarily have control over where that attention is. And the hyperactivity disorder element of it is very much characterizing how some of the symptoms of ADHD impact people who don't have ADHD, which is a terrible way of defining something. And all the diagnostic criteria are really focused on how much of a problem I am for you, not how much of a problem is the world for me. And that's even not covering the fact that it was only based on the symptoms for white cis male boys, and the fact that actually it hits very differently across everyone else. But yeah, it's a real struggle. But I'm blessed to have the stacked privileges that mean I can do things like pay for private diagnosis, fight the corner to get the right meds, and I have the effectively the social and financial standing to not have to deal with a lot of the people that it would be a problem with. But it has been a huge, even when not knowing I had ADHD, it's been a huge problem like all my life. Elements like I can very clearly see solutions to things, usually like multiple leaps ahead of people, and then don't understand why just saying "but the thing" that's not enough for people around you. One that really sticks out, it just hung around forever. My apprenticeship was doing electronic engineering. Back when private subscriber telephone, whatever, I forget. But we built modems to connect the comms, and as one element of it. And there was a lot of regulation from BABT about what you could and couldn't do, down to the physical dimensions of the board. So that's all fine, it's all regulated. But then we bought these cheap plastic covers that you'd have to put over, and the holes never lined up. So my job as an apprentice was to file the holes to shape. Fair apprentice job. And as I was told to do it was you take the thing, you look why it's wrong, you bring it back and you file it. And I'm like, well, this is dumb because it's a lot of effort to do that. So I would get the board, put the thing on, turn it around, look through the hole at the little bit of plastic that's in the way, and file it through. And this resulted in several days of arguing with multiple managers because they're saying, no, you can't file the circuit board. And I'm like, I'm not filing the circuit board. And essentially, it boiled down to you're doing it this way because I told you to. So I didn't have the ability to explain. I wasn't being listened to because I was just a junior. I didn't have the agency to sort of make a decision. And I was still right, but like no one cared about that. I had to do the thing, and that very much was like a stack of symptoms. And it's then way harder for me to engage into the job because I'm doing it wrong, and I'm putting unnecessary effort into do a job badly. Whereas if I'd known I got ADHD, if I understood what it meant, if I could articulate that to someone who also had an understanding of it, that would have been a far easier thing because we could have had the conversation just about the point, and there wouldn't have been any of the power struggle and the I'm in charge. So yeah, that's just one example, but yeah, it's constantly feeling like the kid in Emperor's New Clothes, of not understanding why no one sees the thing. And then also the other side of it is constantly being told that the thing I am doing is easy to not do, or the thing that I'm not doing is easy to do, feeling like, therefore, I am wrong for not being able to do it. And also not help. So there's a strong genetic component to ADHD, the same with autism. Neurodiversity is probably genetic, I think is the thing. And so you have the experience, especially people sort of my age, my generation. Our parents didn't grow up with even the concept of it. And then, so they have no idea if they are or aren't neurodivergent, but they have their own life experience. So you say, you go to your parents, I'm struggling with this thing, and get told, oh no, everyone struggles with that, because they struggled with it, and not realizing that actually, no, everyone doesn't struggle with it. It's a thing about living with this disability in essentially an ableist world that just makes that harder. So you then have that constant, like, why can't I do this?
You mentioned kind of a lot of positives, a lot of negatives, but if you had to kind of choose one of each, starting with the negative and then kind of thinking of a real positive to help people understand a little bit more about ADHD in the real world, what would you say?
I think one thing I would take as, you know what, it's almost the same point for both. There's a joke within neurodiverse circles of the easiest way to get a diagnosis is you just put someone in with a group of other neurodivergent people. And if they're then your best friends within 20 minutes, you're neurodiverse. Like that, you really click. And I remember saying that all my life that there is a small group of people I really, really get on with, and I really struggle with everyone else. And I think I love that, being able to build the bond with my people so quickly, and that's wonderful. But I also find that constant struggle, the feeling like I'm on the outside, the constant worry about do people like me? How do I do this? The definitely like excluding myself from things I want to do because of that. It's the same. It's that lack of natural ability to click or feel like I click with neurotypical people, which unfortunately is the majority. So yeah, that I would say is the hard part, because yes, skills are great. Like all the issues in education, there are other ways to achieve stuff, and that's great. But people are everywhere, and you have to deal with them. And if you want to be a success in most things, most of the people you deal with will be neurotypical, and it just makes life hard. Unfortunately, the world's built for them, and yeah, the amount of effort and energy that you have to put in to just trying to fit into a world that's not built for you, and this is just one element of it, means that even the stuff that isn't hard then becomes hard.
The purpose of Brave Talks is to try and kind of showcase that, and to make sure people know that they're not alone, that there are people out there, there is a community, there are people that they can get help and assistance and talk, and for me, if we can continue that's a really, really positive thing. So just to finish off, if you wanted to kind of send a message to people who are struggling and maybe haven't been diagnosed but kind of feel they're in that direction, what would you say?
Definitely, like if you're thinking you might be, or you're worried with the symptoms, the first thing is you're probably right. Like there's a lot of great resources out there. The first one I would say is the ADHD Adult UK podcast, and they've got a website that's done by the ADHD Adult UK charity. There's a huge number of people undiagnosed. There's articles out there about this mass of undiagnosed people of about my age-ish. We've got better pathways at the moment for autism assessment, but for ADHD it is truly horrific. Like minimum 3-4 years from even convincing a doctor to listen to you to getting a diagnosis. So yeah, reach out to that. There are groups on social media. Again, like I mentioned, TikTok is a great way for that validation. So I would say where you can engage with them, but also your self-diagnosis is valid. There's legal elements around an actual diagnosis and access to support and medication, but yeah, your self-diagnosis is valid, and it's completely acceptable to talk about having ADHD. The same with autism and many other things. Without that diagnosis, you don't need the grown-up to tell you that you are. You are. And then the point I've already talked about, but about understanding about the not feeling the shame. You just because the world is built for people that aren't like us doesn't mean we fail when we don't achieve the same. And then probably one other thing is, like, yes, there's loads of coping mechanisms, there are tools, there are things. It's very common for them to stop working. So keep changing. If you need to keep changing, like, yes, you might have a to-do list that works great for 3 days, and then you need a folder, then you need post-it notes, then you need to like ignore it all and burn it and hide for a couple of days. That's normal and that's fine, and it's okay. But yeah, and then talk to people that you know, reach out. Most people I know of kind of my cohort of undiagnosed are very much in the let's make it better for everyone, let's help. There'll definitely be people that are also in the same situation. Let's talk about it. Yeah, I suppose do all those things.
That's fantastic, Chris. It's been lovely to talk to you. I really appreciate it, and thank you for being so open. And I hope we can do many more of these kind of conversations.
It's been brilliant. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for watching, and check back for more Brave Talks in the future.